Hey there, movie club. Are you sick of your asshole roommate? Do you need a reprieve from your life on campus? Well, I've got just the deal for you. There's a room for rent just down the street, and once you get past the landlord's oddly specific house rules, not to mention the smell creeping up from the drain pipes, you'll find it's the perfect place to sit back, relax, and let the history in the walls take you away. So come on down to whatever the name of the address of the apartment was in the movie.
8 Good Street, something like that.
Yeah. Come on down to 8 Good Street and let's dive into this week's episode.
Welcome to 3 Films and a Podcast, the show where Destiny brought together 3 friends to enhance each other's cinematic journey by watching 3 new movies in a series of themed rounds. There is no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode, as all film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy.
That was the thing I wanted to talk about on the document. I wanted to ask if anyone remembered the address of the apartment.
It was like Gucci or Gucci.
Yeah.
It was not Gucci.
It wasn't Gucci, but it was like Gooch. Forget it.
Well, that's a great way to start off the episode. I love it. Well, hello and welcome back to 3 Films and a Podcast. My name is Tyler Beck. I'm coming to you currently from Cape Coral, Florida, and I'm joined, as always, by Benjamin Lawhorn in Salt Lake City.
Hello.
The classic hello. I like it.
I thought about going with like tell Cersei I want her to know it was me, but I was like, we're really crossing streams here with TV and movies.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, I love Diana Rigg in this, but yeah, we'll keep doing
great.
intros.
If you want me to keep doing intros, I will. And I will introduce Matthew Weiler down in Pleasant Grove.
Hello.
There he is,
Hello.
my guy. If you're new to the show, welcome to our movie club. And if you're returning, welcome back. We're certainly happy to have all of you here. If you could tell your friends about us, that'd be great. We're at 3 Films Pod on all the socials. We're very hip. And you can check out our website, 3filmspod.com, for merch and patron support options. And before we go any further, I've got to introduce the other 2 people on your screen, or if you're listening, the 2 people who have just been introduced into your stream of conscious. We have Erin and Kevin from the podcast That Wouldn't Die. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Stoked to have you guys here.
It's great to have you guys.
Yeah, very excited. And I just listened to your Dune episode, like I told you, off broadcast. And one thing I liked is that Erin disagreed about my opinion on Dune. And we never get disagreement on this show. So I'm hoping we get a little bit here. That'd be fun.
Oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that.
Can't wait.
Like it. So why don't you tell the listeners kind of where they can find you, about your show, about the 2 of you, that sort of thing. Take a moment and plug yourself.
Go ahead, Kevin.
We are okay. Let's do it. We are the podcast that wouldn't die. I'm Kevin, the co-host. Erin is the other co-host. You can find us across social media. We're on Facebook at the podcast that wouldn't die. We're on Twitter at tpodcast_TWDie. You can email us. We're on Insta. Erin, what's our Instagram?
I believe we're the podcast that wouldn't die.
Makes sense.
Nailed
What are we
it.
on Friendster? What are we on Parlay or whatever?
What's your GeoCities website? I gotta know where we can find you guys on AOL.
You guys on Second Life?
And you can listen to us on, all the good stuff. Any place the finer podcasts are available.
That's right. Yeah. Up there with the best, just like us. I like it.
There you go.
Well, Erin and Kevin, not Dave. That's another off recording deep cut. I think we'll dig into the episode now. Unless I have any quibbles, any disagreements. Matt, this is your time.
Air those grievances.
Not tonight.
Okay.
Pizza strength.
This week's episode finds us at the beginning of a brand new round, which means, of course, we're exploring a brand new theme here on the podcast. And for the next 3 episodes, we're going to be talking about movies with 2 female leads. The reason for this round is when we did if you listen to our year 1 recap episode, you'll know that while recording the episode, quite literally in the middle of it, we all sort of had the realization that we didn't do a good enough job representing the female side of Hollywood on season 1 of the podcast. I was actually like personally pretty embarrassed by it. Like in the moment, I remember realizing we were trying to figure out who the best female performance that we saw in season 1 was for reference for the two of you. And we're like, oh, we have 3 options here. This is not great.
Yeah.
It was a bummer, honestly. It wasn't a conscious thing. And, we saw great stuff from Julie Delpy and Jamie Lee Curtis and Jackie Weaver. But I don't know. We just decided we were going to make more of a focus to be more representative here on the podcast when making our programming decisions, so to speak. So, obviously we can't cover every movie with 2 female leads here in 3 episodes, but we're going to do our best. And we're going to start here with the 2001 psychological thriller directed by Edgar Wright titled Last Night in Soho.
2021.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah,
2000.
the new one, not the
That's a segment we're doing later. A little sneak peek there. But since it is a relatively new release, I'm going to ask our guests here to give us a brief synopsis of the film, and then just tell us your personal experience with it, where you saw it, your overall impressions, and that sort. And Kevin, let's start with you.
Well, okay, what is it about? I have to say, when I was watching the trailers, I was bamboozled. I had no idea what it was about. So what is it? It's a girl from the country moving to London, and she's all into the swinging 60s, right? Kind of looks back on it with nostalgia, I guess, because her grandmother, because she's young, it would have been her grandmother's time, basically, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She wants to be a fashion designer. And everyone's rude to her in the dorms, so she bails and rents a crazy one room, like not an apartment, but like rents a room from somebody, and immediately starts having like Sixth Sense visions, essentially, where she's like living. I was confused. She's living the life, or she's kind of seeing what the other woman is doing back in the 60s.
Yeah,
something like that.
It's like she's a really shitty psychic.
Yeah, just at nighttime. Yeah,
just at night.
Nighttime psychic.
Night terrors.
It's not my day job. I only do it at night. Yeah.
That sounds like the follow-up movie to Bone Cop, Bad Cop. Nighttime psychic.
I'm gonna have people call me Bone Cop from now on. That's my new screen name.
It's pretty solid name.
You can't go wrong.
So, Kevin, when was the first time you watched it?
I want to say like late last week.
Oh, okay.
It was the first and only time I watched it. So, I saw it streaming. I saw it on Amazon Prime streaming.
Oh, okay.
The way it was intended.
Yes.
the way
For
that
a
every
cool
filmmaker wants you to
$20.
Nice.
Yes.
Overall, dislike, what was your overall impression of it?
Oh, Erin did not like it.
Erin did not like it. It started off strong. I sat down, didn't know anything about it. I was like, bang! I was all into it. Like the music, like the whole thing, like the Queen's Gambit lady. And then it all started to fall apart. Then it was like Carrie meets A Nightmare on Elm Street meets something else, and I was like,
I thought it was all right. First of all, I thought it was going to be Soho, New York, so I was confused.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Very confused. But then I got into it. It's beautifully shot. I thought some of the imagery, like the faceless creatures that were following him around, I thought that was very cool. I did kind of suss out certain things, but the grand reveal at the end kind of took me by surprise. So I kind of like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whenever they start off, the description was the cinematography was fantastic. As the first thing you mention, there's a problem.
Yeah, it's just like how I describe Joker,
Right.
Yeah, it looks good.
Or Dune.
Whoa.
Okay.
Pump the brakes.
I knew
Shots
that was
fired.
coming. I knew that was coming from Aaron.
Denny, please like and subscribe.
Yeah. We're losing subscribers.
The odometer is spinning backwards.
I love it.
I joked when I saw your thumbs down, Aaron. I was like, oh, here comes the controversy. But I actually had a similar experience. I really liked the first little bit of it. I'm not a huge horror guy, which we've discussed at length on this podcast. So for me, it's not that it fell apart. I just was a little bit less interested in the horror aspects of it. I would have liked to just explore her struggles in the 60s in Soho. I mean, I don't want to explore like forced prostitution, but you know what I mean? I found that like that to be more compelling than like the ghost aspect of it. But overall I did like the movie. Ben, I know you're an Edgar Wright guy. What did you think about this?
Yeah, I don't know. Like this felt like the least Edgar Wright movie to me, but at the same time, it was like very clearly an Edgar Wright movie. Like, this felt like I kind of went through like quickly the IMDb of people that were in this movie, and like I couldn't find anyone else that's been in any other Edgar Wright movie, which is great. But it's just like, no Simon Pegg, no Nick Frost, like that kind of thing. So it's like a new cast, which he's done well. Like Scott Pilgrim, I think was done well. Baby Driver, I think he can do it. So I don't know how much of a negative that is, but just like I just kept waiting for those kind of people that like kind of, I don't know, spoke his language, you know what I mean? Kind of bring up his script and stuff. And then there's just some of the camera moves, like as someone who does video like for a living, that I just like I really pick up on. I love about his stuff, especially those like zoom montages, like when someone's getting ready, just like the quick cuts. Like I love all that kind of stuff. And that just wasn't here, which is totally fine. But again, it's just like, man, I was anticipating that. Like I was ready for it. But at the same time, like some of the technical things that he pulled off in this movie was amazing. Like I watched him, I think it was like on a Vanity Fair video on YouTube, but like explain that scene where she goes down the stairs the first time and they're both like basically across from each other in the mirror. And that was just done practically. They just kind of like cut the mirror a little bit and they were actually right there. So there was no like camera trickery, like no digital stuff. So I appreciate that about him, that he'll do that as much as possible. And then, I mean, it's been mentioned, but the soundtrack was just like amazing. It was so cool. This is definitely the prime, like 60s London. I thought it was really cool. I mean, we'll kind of get into it later, but this definitely falls like on the lower half of the Edgar Wright stuff for me. Not to say I didn't enjoy it, but just like, I guess I kind of, when I rank stuff, it's like, how much would I want to rewatch it? And there's just like so many other of his movies that I would pick first before I would go back to this one. So I don't know. I guess those are, that's kind of my thoughts on this.
I'm right there with you. Matt, what do you think?
So I liked it in the sense that like, I like any good thriller. I thought the mystery that they were unraveling was interesting. I really liked like the 60s vibe that they had going, and the Edgar Wright-isms were great. The music was great. As Ben mentioned, like the editing was super awesome. I think where I sort of fall off is, I mean, as you know, well documented on the pod, I'm not a very big gore guy. So any like slasher sequences, I'm not a huge fan of. But what I really didn't like about this was I know in psychological thrillers, there's always the no one believes me and I might be crazy sequences. And I feel like that kind of got dragged on way too long. There were too many scenes of her just absolutely insane, completely unhinged. It's like, I feel like we get that after one time, that it's like, okay, she has an episode. She seems crazy to all these people, but she had like 4 of those.
Right.
And so I was already over on the second one. And so it's like, okay, well, what else can we do here to move this along? And so that's my big thing about it. Yeah.
It's so interesting too, because like they just kind of led off with like when her grandma's like, oh, did you have another vision? It's like, oh, okay, I guess this is like a thing that we were supposed to like expect or know. And like grandma's cool with it. It's like, oh, you got another episode. Okay. Now go to like the biggest city in this country that we live in and have fun. It's just like, it was just so like flippant, I guess, the way it got addressed. Like, oh, she's having another vision, but okay, have fun in college. I don't know.
I mean, I like that it didn't affect her grades in any way. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Yeah, I mean,
it was like the Sixth Sense. I mean, it was like right out of the gate, she's seeing her mom, I guess the ghostly mom looking at her in the mirror. And it's just like, So are we nuts or are we psychic?
Yeah.
Or both.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what I mean, bad psychic. Because in the end, she got it all wrong.
Right.
True.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
true.
I think that was kind of the fault of some of the storytelling too, because it felt like one of those things where we get the reveal at the end. It's like, well, you guys intentionally made us think something different.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
this wasn't thinking that we could figure out. This wasn't like a whodunit of like, oh, we're going to figure it out. It's like, you didn't really give us any clues and you like purposely misled us, which again, in some sense makes the reveal fun, but also makes it frustrating. It's just like, oh, well, yeah, no one, how would we like figure that out?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Give the
just
audience
like,
a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
she should have been able to see, even if we as the audience weren't able to. She had she was sitting right there. I mean, do we do spoilers on this or are we keeping it?
No, we kick off from the beginning. There's spoilers, so we can, whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, because you knew that Terrence Stamp wasn't who she thought he was.
Mm-hmm.
I think because they were beating you over the head like, well, this must be Doctor Who.
Yeah.
He's aged up now.
Yeah.
That's him. So you knew that's it can't be that. So, but the fact that it was revealed like, oh, hey, and frankly, I kind of figured out that Emma Peel was the young girl. I thought there was some connection, but when they revealed, oh, by the way, I'm also a serial killer. That was new information.
She's Eileen Warner. She's Eileen Warner cruising Florida, picking up hitchhiking truckers and then stuffing them in her walls.
It was definitely, I think, a thing that paid off better on a second watch, because I went and saw it in the theaters when it came out, and then we all watched it at home. And there's some stuff that she says at the beginning where the first time you're like, oh, that doesn't mean anything, but again, like Tyler talked about in the cold open, like the smell rises in the summer, so you'll have to do that. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. Like, you think it's just like general garbage, like nasty smell, but that makes sense.
I love it.
Bed, kitchenette, bathroom. You won't have to worry about it until the summer, but then you'll have to keep the plugs in because all the smells rise up.
How long have you lived here?
Oh, a long while. I used to work here, cleaning and such. Back when round here was a bad spot.
And then, she talks about like, oh yeah, I used to work in this room, but it was mainly cleaning up. It's like, okay, like that was a cool line. And I think maybe I enjoyed it better on the second watch once I kind of like understood that stuff. But the first time I just left like a little unsatisfied because I was like, man, like I don't know. Like I want to just enjoy the movie for what it is, but I think we all kind of want to like play along, I guess, as the movie's going and try to figure it out. And so like the reveal just really knocked me back, and I was just like, oh, that was weird. I wasn't ready for that, but okay.
Well, I mean, technically, if you're going to bury a body, do you really want it on the top floor so it just drips down into your bedroom or something? Don't you have a basement in your weird, London apartment, a bomb shelter you can shove them in? We're putting them in the wall and the floorboard, so
Erin's giving all away her trade secrets here. Now we all know where she's hiding the bodies.
There would be roaches. It would be a horror story.
Yeah, the drain pipes would be the least of your worries, right? Like the melting bodies would leak through the floor and ruin it. It was just crazy. Yeah, it just there was a lot of things I couldn't quite buy everything. Like Matt was saying, the sort of flippant way they treated her condition, I suppose.
Her gift.
Her gift of wrongness.
No one, like, she keeps having these manic episodes and no one believes her except for one person. But like, he had no reason to believe her. She treated him like an asshole.
He wants to get busy with her. That's why I believe you, honey.
He wasn't even bought in either. He's like, oh yeah, my aunt believes weird things.
Yeah, like
that was it.
What kind of companion are you?
Like, she just tried to stab someone in the face, and like,
in the face.
There's no way you're still cool with her. Like, it just
I'm gonna drive you home.
Yeah, hey, sweetie,
please get in my car.
Well, and frankly, she should have been like, clearly I'm unhinged. I mean, Jocasta had it coming, but still.
Sure.
That being said, you think she would say, I'm going to lock myself in my room, or I'm going to do so? You're like a werewolf. You don't just let yourself like unleashed upon the citizenry of London, for God's sakes.
Or isolate these visions you're having. Like, you've already seen visions before. It's like, why not say like, I have these weird visions, not just these ghosts in this bedroom, but like in my life, I see.
I see dead people.
Yeah.
And I'm cool with it. And I'm cool. I often see dead people like Hallie Joel Osment or whatever. And Grant's cool with it. I guess I'm cool with it.
I mean, at a certain point, you'd have to get cool with it because it was
My grandma says
your
it's
life.
fine.
It's not.
Unless you're Donnie Wahlberg, right?
Ben, you mentioned that this was sort of like a departure from his normal style. I mean, you can see his fingerprints all over the movie, but at the same time, it is like pretty different than the stuff that he's done before. And I wonder if maybe since he was trying so hard to do something new, like his normal ability to like tell an interesting story, maybe he just kind of was like, I don't really care as much. I'm trying to do something different here. I wonder if that had anything to do with it. I have no idea. That's just like a guess, because it does seem like he was trying to do something pretty different than he's done before. So with that in mind, I kind of want to know, what did you guys notice? What would you say is in the soup in this movie? Like, was there anything that you noticed while watching it? Like maybe direct homages or, tropes, or even just like straight ripoffs, blatant plagiarisms? Basically, what ingredients in this movie made it what it is? Kevin, I'll start with you here.
I did see a lot of Sixth Sense, that kind of I see dead people that just kind of casually passed over. I also saw Midnight in Paris, the Woody Allen movie, where it's just kind of love story towards like, if only I had been born 30 years before kind of deal.
Okay.
So definitely those kind of things, but then of course put in much more of the psychological thriller kind of situation.
Yeah, I like that. I don't remember Midnight in Paris that well. I've seen it, so when you put this on here, I'm like, how does that tie? I can't remember at all. But now that you mention it,
Adrian Brody being Salvador Dali. Yes, like I remember that. Like going to the cafe, like, oh, that's really good casting. That's perfect. But,
well, in Midnight in Paris, I mean, you have Owen Wilson. For all you Wes Anderson fans, he basically goes back in time to, what was it, the 20s?
Yeah.
Hanging with the Lost Generation, a taxi would pick him up, and he'd just
Ernest
be welcome
Hemingway.
with welcome with open arms. Everybody wants to hang with him because he's so interesting.
Right.
So
with a nose like that, everyone's like, how did that guy? I gotta talk to this guy. Erin, what did you notice in here? What's in the soup for you?
So her drink, the Vesper, is actually James Bond's martini.
Cool.
I mean, who doesn't love all the shiny jacket, the shiny boots, and more James Bond? But while this was always happening, as soon as she'd fall asleep, I was getting Nightmare on Elm Street vibe, where you get sucked in immediately as soon as you fall asleep. And then by the end, it's Monster, the Eileen Wuornos story, where where of course I had to kill them. And then I had to kill the next one. And then I had to kill the next one, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, Matt Smith didn't really work at that club, right? He was just hanging out there by the end of the bar and got the signal from the bartender.
Yeah, I kind of felt like he was like recruiting or whatever. Like that was,
grooming.
Yes, exactly. Man, Nightmare on Elm Street is a great call. Like I was trying to figure it out as I was watching it again today. It's like, man, all those hands grabbing her, like that shot on the ceiling mirror, it's like, and then, of course, yes, it's Johnny Depp getting out of here. So that makes sense. For me, it's like, I don't know if it's necessarily like what's in the soup, but like, it's like a different bowl of soup for me with Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Whereas when I left this felt like Edgar Wright's love letter to 60s London, which the Tarantino movie felt like his love letter, to Hollywood.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I thought. I'm like, I think he just wanted to do something where he could like reference those Bond movies and all these things that like maybe he romanticized growing up and learning about, and just wanted to put a movie in that setting. And I really enjoyed it for that purpose, because I felt the same way about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it's like not my favorite Tarantino by any means, but when I left the theater, it's like, he had a great time making this. Like you can just see it on the screen. And I kind of feel the same way about this with Last Night in Soho. It's like, I think Edgar Wright just had a fucking ball, like putting that, like, dressing the street up like it's the 60s, getting that Thunderball marquee and all that kind of stuff. Like he did a great job with this. And so I guess that's kind of what I saw. So I don't know if it's necessarily like what's in the soup, but it's just like the two bowls of soup that I got, I was like comparing, like, oh, I think this works together.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I was reading some of the trivia. He went through like a lot of he went to great lengths to shoot in Soho. They did a lot of it's I guess it was a real pain in the ass to shoot this thing because he was very adamantly wanted to shoot it in Soho as opposed to like a soundstage to make it look like Soho. So
Yes.
I think you're absolutely right there. And I mean, to be fair, it looked pretty awesome. I wish I could.
Oh, for sure.
Other than being serial murdered at a brothel, the 60s in Soho seemed pretty rad. Matt, what did you see here? What's in your soup?
Yeah, I mean, I had Hitchcock on my mind. There was a Rear Window poster on the wall, and so like from that point on, it was like recognizing some of the Hitchcockisms. Like, I mean, this isn't exclusive to Hitchcock, but like just like the high fashion, the pop of color that usually the protagonist has amidst like more like mundane colors, location, like very location specific, that sort of plays a character itself in the movie. I really liked, or I guess I identified Midnight in Paris as well as sort of like similar vibe, going back in time, but also a little bit of The Shining where he goes down to the bar and he's back in the 20s and like there's this eerie thing about it. Definitely some Shining in the soup there. Yeah. And then just because of recency bias, I have to throw in Spider-Man with Harry and Norman Osborn in the mirror talking to each other.
Oh, right.
Right.
I'm alive in you, Harry. Now it's your turn. You swore to make Spider-Man pay. Now make him pay.
I like that.
You can tell I'm excited about Spider-Man this week.
Was that Spider-Man 3?
So it's Norman and Norman in Spider-Man 1. Then it's Harry and Norman in Spider-Man 2, and then heavy on Harry and Norman in Spider-Man 3. So
yes.
we get plenty of Osborn mirror scenes.
Can't go wrong.
I was toying with doing a movies with mirrors Rushmore. Maybe we still could, but I was like, I don't know if there's enough. Because the only other one I could think of was Candyman. That was the one that jumped out to me. I love in Candyman, I love the mirror dimension. I loved it here. I thought that was really cool. That was the only thing I really picked up on. You guys are much smarter than me and more observant. So
it wasn't used as much, but like we love the mirror stuff in Black Swan. I know we've talked about that, like how they use that in there, both in like removing the cameraman, but also there is some stuff between the Natalie Portman character that gets played off a little differently. But yeah, that'd be a tough one, but it'd be a fun one for sure.
Yeah, maybe someday. I mean, I guess in the end, it's obvious that our boy Edgar is a student of film. Like you mentioned, Matt, he has the Rear Window poster in there, and he obviously wanted to throw back to James Bond. You can tell that he really loves movies, and he just wants to make. He's a student of the craft, I guess I should say. And I kind of wanted to talk about Edgar a little bit. I mean, I know this is supposed to be an episode about women and we're going to derail and talk about a male director, but I don't know. He's becoming like one of my favorite directors. And if I see his name on something, I'm probably going to see it. It's gotten to that point for me. So I just was curious, what was y'all's impression of Edgar Wright, and where does this movie fall on your rankings? Erin, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I'm going to put Scott Pilgrim as number 1.
Okay, let's start with Launchpad McQuack.
That's not the actual title of this.
We are Sex Boom! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Boom.
Nice.
Sean, Hot Fuzz, Sparks Brother, World End, ... this movie.
Oh, come on. Madness.
I like it.
I mean, I think my rankings are pretty similar to yours. In fact, I think they're exactly the same. Although, even though I would put this last on my rankings of Edgar Wright, I don't hate this movie nearly as much as you do.
I mean, I don't understand how she's so ballsy. She's going through time to save this girl, but you can't tell Jocasta to fuck off.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like she's a superhero, but the mean girls are so mean.
That's fair enough. She gets the guts in the mirror dimension without a doubt.
Right.
That's
to be
her
fair,
superhero.
Jocasta sucks.
Yeah,
so I
she
would
does.
probably
She
avoid
sucks,
confrontation with her as well.
Yeah, you
Sorry,
weren't
I
going
cut
to
you
win
off
that.
there, Ben.
No, you're good. I'm just like I'm kind of just like, tag along with you guys here. This would be probably like second to last for me, just because I like World End just fine, but it's not one that I'm like jumping back to. So these are like kind of down there at the bottom. But having said that, I feel like I kind of have to preface it where this kind of feels like a Hitchcock or, Nolan or Kurosawa kind of thing, where it's like even the stuff that I would put at the last is like still good, and for me, like I still enjoy it, but it's just not, it's the stuff I'm going to go to last, like we're later on in the year, we're going to be hitting up Interstellar because that's my least favorite Christopher Nolan. I'm like, I feel like I got to give it another shot because I think everybody loves it but me. Right. So it's like, I know it's still a well done movie. I just don't love it. That's
no, stay strong. Stay strong.
Okay, all right, cool. I'm glad I have the support of somebody here. So, I guess, I just want to like qualify. Like, I don't think it's bad by any means, but again, like it's not the thing I'm going to reach for if I'm putting on an Edgar Wright movie.
Yeah, same. Erin, I noticed in the document you said you hate Baby Driver. I just wanted to make sure we got that on record.
That is correct. And I saw it at the theater. I just remember, and I had a couple of drinks in, and I was literally like, what the hell?
I just wanted to. Oh, go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
I'm going to be kind of controversial here. I loved Shaun of the Dead. Love so Shaun of the Dead. I went and saw it in the theater, knowing nothing about Edgar Wright or any of the other guys. And I just loved it. Now I'm a big zombie file, so maybe that makes a difference.
Yeah.
I eventually really appreciated Hot Fuzz as well. I saw it recently, and it is dynamite.
Eventually?
Well, I think I was hoping it was going to be like more zombies.
Oh my God.
Why can't there always be a few zombies running around?
You got way more Point Break, way less zombies.
That's yes, exactly.
That's Edgar Wright unsung gem.
Right. I took my wife and we saw The World's End and was totally disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Totally disappointed. Saw it in the theater. Have to say I probably need to take another pass at Scott Pilgrim and with Baby Driver because the first time I saw him, I was disappointed in both of them.
What?
Oh, okay.
I even bought Scott Pilgrim. I thought it was amazing. I was walking around to people going, have you seen Scott Pilgrim?
Yeah. That's how I was introduced to it as well. My friend Adam, I mentioned earlier, he basically made me watch it. I love Scott Pilgrim very much.
Yeah.
I had another point, but I lost it. So I'll throw to Matt. Matt, what's your take here?
I have seen exactly 4 Edgar Wright movies. And
okay.
So this lands on your Rushmore.
So this lands on my Edgar Wright Rushmore. And I mean, I've liked all of them that I've seen. I wouldn't know how to rank them. This probably would rank last, but similar to Ben, like that's not a bad thing. It just happens to be the 4th of 4 movies that I really liked. The other 4 being Shaun of the Dead, Scott Pilgrim, and Baby Driver. So I'm not well versed in Edgar Wright, but so far he's 4 for 4. But yeah, this would probably be the last of the 4.
Yeah,
that's cool. Erin, did you like the Sparks Brothers documentary? That's like the one thing I haven't seen.
I really did. And first of all, I didn't know who Edgar Wright was. It's just a coincidence that I happen to like all these movies. And 2 weeks ago, I like watching documentaries about music.
Yeah.
And I knew like Perfume or something from the Sparks Brothers. And I watched the documentary. It was fantastic.
That's cool.
Yeah, I didn't know they were a real band, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd ever heard of them, and I saw that he was putting that documentary out. I was like, oh well, I don't know if I know their music at all, but I thought
it was like a parody or something.
It looks like it might be, but it is our parents' priests' favorite band.
Okay. That's very specific.
Nice.
That is very specific.
Well, I have heard of neither the band nor the documentary until prepping for this episode. So I have no frame of reference. Along those same lines, I've never heard of the band. I've never seen the documentary. And you might try to convince me to either check out the band or the documentary or both. So in the where am I trying to go with this? I'm trying to do a really cool, clever segue here. It's not working. I want to know if you had to convince someone to watch this movie as opposed to the Sparks Brothers documentary, and you could do so by choosing one scene from the movie or like a favorite moment from the movie. What would you choose, Erin?
I'm gonna need some clarity. So I have to convince him one or the other, or why Last Night in Soho is better than the Sparks Brothers. I need direction.
That's totally fine. So typically we get this question all the time, like when we're talking to friends or family about the podcast, and they say, what movie are you doing next? And we'll say, Last Night in Soho. And they'll say, well, why? And so as an answer to that question, we might show them a scene from the movie to try and pique their interest so they can watch the movie and then listen to our episode and improve our rankings on Apple Podcasts.
Good thinking.
No, I'm kidding. It's not that self-serving, but that is kind of the conceit of the question is, you know, as opposed to just giving just a pitch like, hey, it's really good and it looks good and it's fun. Let's show them a scene and try to convince them.
I would just say it's bang music. The fashion's amazing, super stylized. And if you don't get bogged down with pot, you're going to love it.
That's fair.
I love it.
Kevin, what would you go with here?
It's hard because, you kind of you want somebody to kind of roll in there without any preconceived ideas. That was kind of the issue. The scene that I kind of kept thinking about was the library scene where she's running around, she's seeing the faceless zombie dudes, and she almost gets poor Jocasta in the eyeball.
We're so close.
Right.
We're so
close.
I mean,
it kind of, but I don't know if that's too spoilery. It's a hard question.
Yeah, I typically try to go not too spoilery with this answer, because I felt like if we didn't qualify it as trying to convince someone, then everyone would just pick their favorite scene, which is fine to do.
Right.
But we kind of wanted a way to like get people to talk about some different stuff. I think I would choose the Halloween dance here. I feel like that kind of gives you everything that Erin talked about. You see some of the way that they interact with the music in the show. You see that it's kind of like a ghost story so that you're not surprised and let down halfway through the movie. To me, that was like the most representative of what you're going to see in this movie. And it's a really great scene. I loved it a lot. Benjamin, what would you pick here?
Mine, I think we see it in the trailer. So I think it's kind of a good, non-spoilery thing, but just kind of that first sequence from when she's in that room and, enters whatever that dream state is down the alleyway. And then we just get that big, huge Thunderball marquee and then the cars going by. And she's obviously like in like the modern day PJs and stuff. And all these people just like kind of dressed to the nines, ready to go dance and stuff. I just like that so much because to me, it just speaks again to like Edgar Wright's attention to detail and just kind of showing like how, I guess, beautiful, these flashback, whatever we want to call them, scenes are. So that's what I would show, just kind of give people an idea of the two times that we're going to be, living in.
Down the rabbit hole.
I mean, I would agree with you. When that was going on, I was still 100% invested in this movie. I was like, this is speaking to me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, because I don't know. I was just like super on board with it. And I enjoy, I think a lot of people do, but it's like a one take camera shot, or following them around and stuff. And we got that in this as well. So I just think it's a super cool scene. And I don't know. I think people hopefully will be bought in at that point.
Yeah, and that's
and then be disappointed like Erin.
That's the sequence that I would choose too. Even though it's kind of similar to the trailer that we get, we kind of see there's sort of a duality of those two characters, and it leaves us like wondering what that even is. And even in that scene, we don't have any answers. We're like sort of just out there with them, trying to piece it all together. But it is, to me, the coolest sequence in the movie, and also probably the most compelling to get someone to watch it.
Do you include when she goes inside and it's revealed that everyone thinks she's wearing a gown, or do you stop before she goes inside the venue there?
I'm going in the venue.
Okay. Yeah. I think you almost have to, because I in the moment I was like, wait, everyone's just fine with her wearing her PJs? Like what kind of,
Yeah.
It's very
and then
casual.
when you get that ball, and that's when you first see Anya Taylor-Joy as well. You're like, oh, that's where she comes in. Okay, yeah. I think that's probably the right answer. So well done. 3 points to all of you. I don't know. We don't take points here, So I wanted to try something a little bit different. We've done some recast episodes, and we have a few repeating segments we like to do, but for whatever reason, I thought it might be kind of fun to try and do what I might call a time travel precast, not a recast.
Okay.
It's a precast. So conceptually, it's just a recast, but we're going to ignore all the rules in every time travel movie ever. And we're going to go back and change the past. Ben, cue Rhodey's speech from Endgame.
If we go back, we get the stones before Thanos gets them. Thanos doesn't have the stones. Problem solved.
Bingo.
That's not how it works.
Well, that's what I heard.
Wait, but who? Who told you that?
Star Trek, Terminator, Time Cop, Time After Time.
Quantum Leap.
Wrinkle in Time, Somewhere in Time.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Hot Tub Time Machine. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Basically any movie that deals with time travel.
Die Hard? No, that's not one.
Endworld. What is Endworld?
The world's end.
It's the next
Sure.
one.
Edgar Wright's getting in your head.
I'm seeing dualities here. But yeah, anyways, we just want to go back and pretend that this movie was originally released at some point in the past, and it flashes back to another point in the past. So with that in mind, who would you precast in the original release of Last Night in Soho? When would you release it? Who would your lead characters be? The Thomas and Mackenzie roles and Anya Taylor-Joy role. And when would you flash back to? Kevin, let's start with you.
Being a child of the 80s, I am going to release the movie in the 80s.
Okay.
And I was thinking about what's the most 80s movie in the world. There was a movie, the C. Thomas Howell classic, Secret Admirer, with Lori Loughlin and Kelly Preston.
Okay.
So I'm stealing that cast. So it's going to be Lori Loughlin as the Thomas and Mackenzie girl from the country coming to the big city, and Kelly Preston as the blonde bombshell that she sees in the vision. If it couldn't be swinging 60s, I might go all the way back to the Roaring 20s because it has kind of a similar vibe to it, but it's further away than obviously just 20 years. So I think that might be the way to go.
I like it. My initial thought when I did this was to try and do back to like the 80s and try and work in Sharon Stone. For some reason, I was like, I want to see Paul Verhoeven do this. That's not what my answer ended up being. But I was just like, I don't know why. That was the first thing I thought. And then I was like, we need to revise that a little bit. Aaron, where would you go here?
Boom. I'm still in the swinging 60s, but this time it's 1962, and it is Betty Davis. It's Joan Crawford. It is Baby Jane. It is oh crap. It's what Joan Crawford goes to LA to work in the fashion industry, but as a custodian.
Okay.
And she's running a flop house from Betty Davis. No, am I getting my people? Betty Davis is the one who's on the other side of the mirror.
Okay.
And they're old and they're angry, and Betty Davis is just as crapulent as she is in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. And then she's the serial killer.
That's
I love it. And wait, did you say when you're flashing back to?
I just Googled it. It's the 60s, 1962. Not so swinging.
But when's the movie released? When's the movie released, Aaron?
That's it, 62.
Well, but they have to go back in time to
in the movie
period. What the?
Yeah, it's parallel universe. They're both just as old.
Okay. Hey, that works for me.
That's great.
I like it. We're all pro multiverse here.
There you go.
Metaverse, we're still working out the kinks there. But multiverse, I'm into it. Matthew, where would you go here?
Okay, so we'll set it in the 80s, and they're going back. They're going back to the Stonehenge.
Hell yeah.
They're solving a prehistoric murder.
Okay,
I like it.
Let's bring in
Spinal
Brendan
Tap.
Fraser.
Okay.
Encino Man.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, make it a Brendan Fraser, Pauly Shore movie.
Link and I are cruising the mountain, bro, and we figure we's a little juice.
No, we sing the juice. Where's the juice? No, we sing the juice.
So
God.
the episode in which we're celebrating women, you're gonna go back and steal
There'll be women in
two
it.
prominent roles. Oh, I sure hope so.
Julia Roberts. Yeah, I don't know.
Did they have mirrors back in Stonehenge time?
It's
we
a
didn't know that
pond.
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look into the.
We don't know what
pond,
they
yeah.
had.
We're gonna find out in
Yeah.
Matt's retcon version of Last
Exactly.
Night in Soho. Ben, how serious did you take this question?
Well, funny you should ask. My first answer was I was going to say I just want to do a Freaky Friday remake and do 2 Lindsay Lohans with Jamie Lee Curtis as in the Diana Rigg role.
Yes.
But then I took it a little more serious, and what I really want to see is this is kind of like a horror thriller movie. So I wanted to throw back to our late 90s Scream Queens. So in the Eloise role, I'm going to have Jennifer Love Hewitt from I Know What You Did Last Summer. And then I'm going to yank my number 1 off of my Rushmore Mountain, and I'm putting Nev Campbell in that Sandy role. So I want the two of them in there.
Wow.
I decided to go, I wanted to figure out who would be Diana Rigg. My first thought was Angelica Houston, but then I looked in the late 90s, she was only 40 years old. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make sense. I can't do that. So I'm going to actually kind of tap into our Miyazaki round. We just did a little bit. And I think Lauren Bacall would be super awesome in that role. So that's what I would go with. Jennifer Love Hewitt, Nev Campbell, with Lauren Bacall as the big bad.
I like it. And so are we dyeing their hair blonde or are they staying brunette?
I guess both, right? I don't know. I mean, maybe Jennifer Love Hewitt starts out blonde and then dyes brunette, to match.
I like the idea
Nev.
that your version is the brunette version and Edgar's version is the blonde version. I like that.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll swap it that way.
It's a Party of 5 reunion show.
Yes, exactly. I thought about honestly, once I saw Kevin's answer the 20s, that's the perfect time, kind of Gatsby-ish, I guess, you know what I mean? Kind of like that. But maybe WandaVision was getting in my head. I was like, might be cool if they were in Salem. And that was the thing they were going back to solve as well. And I thought that was nuts until I heard Matt's answer of Stonehenge. I'm like, oh, Salem's totally fine. That's all good.
That's at the bar low.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Matt set the bar, so I can say Salem. That's totally fine.
Anything goes.
So, yeah, we could do anything here. So either one of those.
I read Matt's answer on the document and I was like, Stonehenge. I couldn't even understand how he was answering the question. So I'm glad I eventually found out. And once I got over my weird Paul Verhoeven idea, I saw a lot of Hitchcock in this movie as well. So I could easily see this having been a Hitchcock film in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s. And I really want to see Julie Andrews play the Sandy role because of the singing and everything. And I just think it would be fun to see Mary Poppins do something kind of darker, I don't know.
Will she have a song?
She'll have at least one. She'll have at least one song.
At least one.
I don't know how it works out timeline wise. She's not Mary Poppins yet at the time that she's age appropriate for this role, but that doesn't matter. We can work that out.
Oh my God. Excuse me. What if after she kills all the people, she goes to hide as a nanny and is in fact Mary Poppins?
Oh,
shit. It's a prequel to Mary Poppins. I like that.
Matt knows I'm a huge fan of headcanon on this podcast, and I think that's my favorite bit that we've come up with so far.
And she's Nick Miller's mom. She's Nick Miller's mom.
No, that's Jamie. Oh yeah, not Jamie Lee Curtis. That's Jess's mom. For the Eloise role, Audrey Hepburn. Yeah, too much Mary Poppins in my head. Audrey Hepburn was my first thought. I don't know how it necessarily makes sense. She's a little bit older than Julie Andrews, I think. So maybe Mia Farrow. I don't know. It's a Hitchcock movie, so that makes sense to me. And I agree that the 20s makes the most sense to flashback to. I think it's the 20s in New York. I don't know. I think that'd be pretty cool. So let's do some trivia. Did you guys find any trivia when you were researching the movie? Anything popped out to you that was interesting or fun?
I think
Kevin?
Tyler snatched it all.
One thing I found was that Edgar Wright always has James Bond references. And in this movie, we know that there was Diana Rigg, who was in On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah.
But there was another Bond girl in this movie. The sage barmaid.
That's right.
Her name is Margaret Nolan, I believe. She had a very small role. She played Dink in Goldfinger. She's the chick giving Sean Connery the rub down at the pool.
Okay.
That he swats on the ass when she's done. So
Nice.
two Bond
good
girls.
stuff.
And
Good
honestly, I wouldn't be surprised down the road if Anya Taylor-Joy doesn't become a Bond girl or Thomasin McKenzie. Like, who knows what we're going to get in this next Bond. My trivia, honestly, was just more like watching the credits roll and be like, what? And that was the fact that Fred and George Weasley were in this movie from Harry Potter. And I was like, wait, where were they? You know, so again, on the rewatch, on that opening sequence, when the guy's like, can I take your cloak? Because there wasn't actually a mirror there, like they had a lot of twins, you know, in the movie. And so those are the guys that take her coat, but without the red, you know, mop on top. It's like, oh, that's not a Weasley. So going back and watching it, I was like, oh my God, that's actually them. So
that's cool.
I should do them the respect of saying their real name, but I'm just going to call them Fred and George. So I just thought that was kind of cool.
The Weasleys.
Just a cool way.
That's what people know
like,
them by.
Yeah, exactly. Just like kind of how they did that in the Matrix, you know, the first Matrix movie where they had a lot of twins like walking around. So you think you're seeing doubles. I feel like he used it well in this sequence also.
Yeah. Let's see. Erin, what trivia did you find here?
Nothing.
Nothing. Moving on.
Perfect.
Matthew, what did you find?
I mean, I didn't really look too much into it either, other than Ben already highlighted that this was sort of like a love letter to that era of London, of Soho. And
yeah,
whatever I read just sort of corroborated that Edgar Wright has close ties to that era and, you know, that location. And so it just, you know, all but solidifies that observation.
Yeah. I mean, piggybacking off of that, we talked about it earlier, how much he seems to have loved Soho and obviously London and the British culture or whatever. I thought it was cool that he shot on location in Soho, but he took the opportunity during the pandemic to get shots of the city that you see rolling in the credits, everything empty. I think that's interesting. Sort of like reminds me of the 25th Hour, how there's a lot of post 9/11 New York in there, just kind of in the background. And it's like an interesting timestamp from that time in our actual history, as opposed to like the history in the movie. And I just like that. I like that they were able to kind of fit that in and turn what was a bad thing into an opportunity to do something cool with it. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right, we're gonna head to the drive-in. We're gonna meet up with our friend Adam Driver, and we're gonna have a drive-in double feature. And I'm curious what other movie you would want to pair this movie up with in your dream double feature scenario. Kevin, let's start with you.
Well, initially I was thinking Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery.
I love that pick.
I think it's pretty solid.
You know, you have the opening dance number. I don't think that really works tonally. Maybe Sixth Sense. Maybe kind of because they're both kind of that psychological thriller with a dash of the supernatural. So,
which one would you show first?
That's a good question. Maybe I'd do Soho first because Sixth Sense ends kind of in a happy, positive place.
Yeah,
kind of a palate cleanser.
My counter to that would be Soho might kind of give away what's happening in the Sixth Sense, since you've just seen something similar.
That's a hell of a good point. Yes.
And the best part of the Sixth Sense is figuring out what the hell is going on.
Right.
But I do think it's a solid pairing. Erin, where would you go with this?
So I'm going with A Shot in the Dark, another kind of 60s groovy movie. And after, you know, the seriousness of Last Night in Soho, you get a little comedy. Still murder. Still mystery.
Yeah, sure. We got to have a little bit of murder. We can't.
Peter Sellers, you can't go wrong. That's awesome.
Where would you go with this, Matthew?
We mentioned it. Midnight in Paris was my first thought. I actually thought of Austin Powers too. I thought that'd be kind of funny. Throw on Midnight in Paris first. Once the kids fall asleep, kind of go into Last Night in Soho for the more horror side of Midnight in Paris. Midnight Paris if it went wrong.
That's right.
Yeah. I kind of thought about the first thing I thought about was as far as like solving the mystery kind of thing, and like this is like tonally like way off base, but it's like maybe Minority Report, you know, how they're trying to like solve the crime that they saw happen, but they got to figure out like how it happened. But that's just super jarring to me. I thought that new release of Cruella on Disney Plus, that's also 60s London, but more like the punk side of it. And I thought that might be kind of a fun thing too. But I was somehow able to convince myself in my argument earlier. I'm like, yeah, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think that'd actually be super fun. Like, let's watch this first and then let's go to Hollywood afterwards. So just kind of directors who love, using the practical sets and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of giving love letters to, their hometowns. So that's what I'd go with.
And a finale with fire.
And the revenge fantasies.
Yeah. True. Yes. Yep. Exactly.
You are... I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business. No, I was dumber than that. Something like Rex.
Kachudum, Tex!
Tex!
Who doesn't want to spend 6 hours at the drive-in?
Yes, 6 hours.
So, I mean, honestly, I had a kind of a hard time coming up with an answer here. I don't really know why. Maybe it's just because I have no idea why. I'd probably play The Shining. My real answer is it does remind me a lot of The Shining, so I'd probably play that. But I'm going to change it to Austin Powers because I think it needs to be. I think it needs to be on here. I think you play it first. And then you play Last Night in Soho, so you realize what you're going back to, right? We're going back to Austin Powers. It's going to be safe. It's going to be fun. And then you'll have your heart ripped out.
I want to see the Austin Powers edit where he's one of the dead dudes.
Yeah, right? Austin would not have survived. No. He might have been the first victim. So let's go to Rushmore Mountain. How about it? What do you think?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
These are OR scrubs.
Oh, are they?
So the Rushmore Mountain is your 4 favorite movies that fit the category. And the category in this episode is psychological thrillers. So Erin, what are your 4 Rushmore Mountain psychological thrillers?
Well, because I only listed 3, I'm still in Ben's Gone Girl because I really love the book and the movie.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I threw in the Hitchcock Shadow of a Doubt. Things are not what they appear. People who are not who they appear. Stir of Echoes because, you got people boarded up in the wall. And then Gaslight, because you're going crazy, right? Or are you?
Nice.
Kevin, where are you going to go with this?
This was hard because there were a lot of good psychological thrillers. For my list, I said I'm going to eliminate any movies that have supernatural qualities. I want it to be much more straight psychological. I went Silence of the Lambs.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
I went the Argento classic, Deep Red. If you haven't seen that lately, check
Profondo
that out.
Rosso.
Profondo Rosso. I also went with, this is kind of a controversial pick, perhaps, Shutter Island, which was a Martin Scorsese classic with Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's right. I saw that.
It was, it has that thing where it's like, things aren't as they appear. You know what I mean? You think it's one thing, but it's really something else. And then to end it all with the immortal Hitchcock classic, Psycho. Love it. Dynamite.
Yeah.
Solid choice.
I don't know why you would think Shutter Island is controversial.
Well, I don't think it did that. I mean, talking to people, it's like when I mention Shutter Island, they look at me like, what's that? Who are you?
Yeah.
Where am I?
It's right up there with Winchester.
How dare you? Winchester.
I guess why I took that is like you thought it was controversial, like it might not fit the category. I guess that's how I took it. Because I mean, I didn't hate Shutter Island, but I think for this genre, it's pretty good. I don't know, it's fine.
See, that's why it's controversial.
I guess, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I feel like the Shutter Island for Scorsese is kind of like the Last Night in Soho for Edgar Wright, where it's like it's not bad, but it's just like it's not the first Scorsese I'd go back to watch again. But For me, I went with one of my favorites is The Game. I really enjoy that a lot with Michael Douglas. Gone Girl, as mentioned before, that one's, I don't know, probably the most recent one that I just think is so good. Just a wonderful movie. When I was in film school, I took an audio class and our teacher put on this movie that I thought was going to be super boring and I couldn't have been more captivated. And it's called The Conversation. With Gene Hackman. And he's like, he does basically audio, professionally. And he thinks he overhears this couple basically like talking about a murder that happened. And then kind of just like drives himself crazy trying to figure it out. Kind of like, what's the other, is it Blow Up? Is that the other movie about the photographer? Blow Out. Yeah.
We're doing that on our show, actually.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. And then, we did a Hitchcock round. I feel like some of those could have fit in here. Especially I think Vertigo would have been good, but I just had to go with Rear Window because that to me is the one that kind of encapsulates the psychological thriller the most. But yeah, Psycho is also just like one of the best things he ever did. So I think it's a great choice.
And Grace Kelly is just gorgeous and amazing, and all her costumes and everything she does and says is just striking.
She's so good in that. I love it so much.
Continues to be a hole in my Hitchcock.
Maybe we'll have to do a second Hitchcock round.
Ooh, I wouldn't complain. I also wouldn't complain if Matt told me his Rushmore Mountain of psychological thrillers.
Segue.
Well, I will not disappoint you. And picking up right where Ben left off, I will lead off with Rear Window. I will go to What Lies Beneath.
Mm-hmm.
I will move on to High Crimes, and then finish off with another mirror psychological thriller, Skeleton Key.
Love Skeleton Key.
Skeleton Key, oh yeah.
So we could have done an all mirrors Rushmore here. I think we could have done it. I could only think of two. I'm a dummy. What were you going to say, Ben?
I've never heard of High Crimes before, so I'm like looking it up right now. It looks interesting. And I don't know that I've seen Skeleton Key either, or even heard of it. But.
Oh no, it's really voodoo and good stuff like that. You need to have a whole voodoo round. We can throw in some Angel Heart and all kinds of good stuff.
That's not a bad idea. We'll have you back on for sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say, keep your DMs open.
Yeah. So the first one that I thought of was Black Swan. Someone described that movie to me as the female American Psycho, which I thought was a pretty solid comparison. Yeah. But I love that movie. Ben and I, we've talked about that a bunch. The cinematography, and that's great. And that's not the first thing I would say about it, but it's true. It is. I just love that movie.
I love Black Swan.
I've only seen it the once, and it just has stuck with me this whole time. Similarly, Parasite, I've seen that twice, but from the second I saw that, it was destined to be on this list, and it always will be, I'm sure. The Shining, I discovered that here on this podcast. I think all three of us did, right? Maybe Matt had seen it.
I had seen it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I discovered it on the podcast, and it quickly become one of my favorites. And another one of my favorites is Seven. I think it's one of my favorite movie memes ever. The "What's in the box" thing.
What's in the box?
There it is. I get a lot of traction.
I keep trying to figure out how to work that into "What's in the soup." I need to find a movie that says the word soup in it. I want to do that so bad for our intro. I got to find some movie that says soup in it.
It's made out of people.
It's funny. I had the same thought. I was like, we should name this the "What's in the Box" segment, just so we could do that.
Yes.
There's still time, but I don't want to take it away from Matt because he came up with that.
I like to shout it out on Christmas morning.
That's a perfect time. You get a lot of opportunities.
I like it. I don't know if the rest of us enjoy it.
And that's why I spend Christmas alone. So, I mean, I think I've covered everything I wanted to talk about. Erin or Kevin, was there anything you wanted to mention that we didn't get to?
I don't know how she kept pulling off these designs were just copies of a dress that she saw that was clearly another time. So that it was already a dress that was invented. So she just recreated it and no one noticed it. It literally looks like an Austin Power dress. So that means everybody was wearing it. You're a genius.
It was an awesome dress, though, that's for sure. Yeah.
It was an awesome dress. Sadly, it wasn't her design.
Yeah, it was also awesome in the 60s.
Yeah.
So.
I have to say, I found it fascinating that there were multiple scenes of full frontal zombie penis. Did you notice that?
I actually didn't.
I actually didn't notice that.
So, Kevin, you're on your own.
Don't go back and watch it. Just there's a scene where it's like 30 faceless ghost dudes, full frontal nudity, facing poor Thomas and Mackenzie.
Well, when's the last time you? Yeah, when was the last time you saw that? Where all the women you saw no boobs, it was all just naked men.
Yeah, it's good balance, you know. Let's show 30 dicks. That'll help balance it out.
That's why I'm surprised I didn't notice it. Like that's.
I mean. Along those lines, like that sequence when she's running down the hallway and looking into all the rooms, you know, the person shooting up.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you just see all kinds of stuff. That really kind of caught me off guard. I think because that's for me, I was like, oh, this is Edgar Wright. Like we've never seen anything like this in any of his movies before. And I mean, it was true for the time and for the story and stuff like that. But that stuff just caught me off guard, even as like, you know, obvious as it was in the storyline. I was like, man, I did not expect to see all of it. You know, it was kind of jarring, but it worked. Obviously it was effective, but I just was not ready for that at all.
That gave me Shining vibes with all the you know, the guests of previous, and every room has some kind of spirit in it.
The dude in the bear costume.
The dude in the bear costume.
With that lady in the bathtub, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I didn't want
so the takeaway there is prostitution can make you very sad.
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that every story we see about prostitution?
Yeah,
they don't show the fun side, you know.
That's a different genre.
I just want to be like Erin's blurb on the cover of the Last Night in Soho box. Prostitution can make you very sad.
Yeah, for the most part, I think you're just sad. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't judge. So yeah, I think that'll do it. Erin, Kevin, you want to take a moment to plug yourselves one more time? Tell the people where they can find you.
Absolutely. We are the podcast that wouldn't die. Again, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. I think that's it for social media. We are also on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, anywhere the finer podcasts are available. So check us out. We just released our Dune episode, and our Blowout episode is coming out next week.
Nice.
Coincidence.
That's awesome.
I dig it. If you're a fan of Dune, give it a listen. You need to challenge yourself a little bit, and Erin will do that for you.
Yes, she will.
We need to have a vote. Who liked the David Lynch better than the new Dune? Anybody?
So I still haven't seen it. I got to qualify with I still haven't seen it. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear.
All
yes.
right.
I mean, I think the David Lynch one had more sting in it.
That's true.
Is
Yes.
true.
That's what you're basing your vote off of.
I mean, has more sting.
Yeah. All right, so it's better. That's all you have to say. It has more sting. It's better. Well, we are 3 Films and a Podcast. You can find us at 3 Films Pod on all the socials, mainly Twitter and Instagram is where we're most active. If you are listening to our podcast, I highly recommend you watch it over on YouTube. Ben does a phenomenal job cutting in fun stuff, little Easter eggs throughout the episode. And it's probably the best way to consume our product. And you can find us 3 Films and a Podcast over there. But however you're hearing us or watching us, we're happy to have you here, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Why does everything have to be so complicated?
If you want something bad, you have to fight for it. Step up your game, Scott. Break out the L word.
Lesbian?
The other L word.
Lesbians?
It's love, Scott. I wasn't trying to trick you.